Well, good morning, Lily. That's right. Actions are speaking louder than words, especially when it comes to the ongoing war in the Middle East. New reports suggest Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is ready to defy President Biden's red line drawn up against an impending Rafah invasion. But I want to bring in Israeli government spokesman Avi Hyman for more on this. Avi, thank you so much for joining us. I first off want to get your thoughts on President Biden's latest comments that the Prime Minister is only hurting and not helping Israel, accusing the Prime Minister of not preventing civilian deaths in Gaza.
Good morning, Monica. Thank you so much for having me on. I can tell you that from the beginning of the war, the president has made it very clear that we stand on the same page with as far as the aims of the war are concerned, which is the total destruction of Hamas, the return of the 134 Israeli hostages, men, women, and children being held by Hamas, and getting to a scenario by which Gaza cannot pose any threat to Israel. Now, we have to go into Rafah because we've taken out 18 out of 24 Hamas battalions. We're currently fighting a couple in central Gaza, but the 4 last battalions are in Rafah. So we didn't say we were going to go after a half of Hamas. We didn't say we were going to go after 3/4 of Hamas. We need to destroy all of Hamas, and that will mean going into Rafah and obviously avoiding civilian casualties. We'll get the civilians out of harm's way, and we will destroy Hamas, as we have done until now.
Now, Avi, President Biden has said that he is kind of against going into Rafah. So what is this assessment? What is your assessment on this? Do the president's comments pose a risk to the way that Israel is trying to protect itself?
We know, again, it would be like turning to Winston Churchill, turning to the Allies during the Second World War and saying, listen, you're doing a great job. You've gone through Normandy. You're making good grounds on Germany, Nazi Germany. But don't go for Berlin, where all the power is, where all the important stuff is. We can't do that. We're fighting today's modern day Nazis, as the Prime Minister has said, and we need to commit them to the annals of history. We cannot stop.
75 years ago,
halfway in.
the first Israeli Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion.
Now, Avi, I'm just curious to know, does the president's words hold any weight when it comes to the prime minister's decision-making process when it comes to defending itself against Hamas?
So obviously, America is our greatest ally. And as friends, we take advice from our ally. But we don't always have to agree on the same things. The prime minister has made it very clear, and the president has agreed. We have to destroy Hamas. Now, if we don't go into Rafah, we're leaving Hamas to rearm. They would likely retake Gaza, and they will do exactly what they said they want to do, which is perpetrate the October 7th massacre again and again and again. We can't allow that. We need to destroy Hamas.
Absolutely. And I was seeing reports this morning from CNN, although, multiple officials this morning saying that an offensive in Rafah is not yet imminent. The White House has urged against the plan before coming up with a way to evacuate civilians. But when it comes to, these plans, Biden's red line against invasion of Rafah, what do you want the president to know about Israel's military plan to defend itself?
Well, we've made it clear from day one, as far as Rafah is concerned, that there is a large civilian population there. We've moved in an unprecedented way. We moved many, many Gazans down south and eventually got to the southern point, which is Rafah. So the prime minister didn't just ask the military, the IDF, for a plan to attack Hamas. He asked for a dual plan to get civilians out of harm's way and then to attack Hamas. And that's exactly what we'll do. As far as timing is concerned, you can appreciate that I'm not going to broadcast the timings to our enemy as to when we'll take care of their job. But it's something that needs to be done to obtain victory, and we're going for full victory.
Absolutely. And Avi, before we go, there are growing calls for a ceasefire while the Middle East observes Ramadan at this time. But given that Hamas won't release hostages or make an agreement on any sort of pause or ceasefire, is this possible?
Hamas is doing its utmost. It has from the beginning of the war to suggest that this is some kind of a religious war, to incite some kind of a holy war. This, from an Israeli perspective, this war is about one thing and one thing only, and it's survival. It's survival of the one and only Jewish state. They cynically use religion when we know that they attacked us on one of the happiest days in the Jewish calendar, Simchat Torah. I personally was on the way to synagogue with my children to celebrate and had to run to the bomb shelter instead. And we know that 1,200 Israelis were brutally murdered. We know about the beheadings, about the rapes, using rape as a weapon. These are brutal enemy. When it suits them, they wave the Ramadan card. But I'll remind you that in 1973, on the holiest day in Israel's in the Jewish people's calendar, Yom Kippur, we were attacked by multiple Arab enemies on Ramadan. So we have full respect for all religions in Israel. You'll see the nearly 2 million Muslims in Israel marking Ramadan with their families in peace, as proud Israelis with all of the same rights that I have. But the notion that after what they've done to us, we should suddenly put our hands up and capitulate to them because of the dates on the calendar, that's absurd.
That's exactly right. Avi Hyman, Israeli government spokesman, thank you so much for joining us here on One American News. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.